Welcome everyone, I'm Debbie Johns and I'm the Head of Performance Networks for APSE. I'm going to do three things in this presentation, which are firstly, I want to look at the impact of Covid-19 on performance management in local government in the UK. This is from an extra data collection exercise we did this year, and it's additional to our annual returns. It was for April to June 2020. We actually got well over 100 returns for this, so thank you for everyone who took the time to get involved in the working groups to decide the questions, but also those that actually completed the exercise as well. To put this into context, I'm going to draw on some of the trends from the annual returns pre-COVID, so our usual trend analysis, which includes the latest figures for 1920. Secondly, I'm going to provide a progress report for this year on what we've achieved. And thirdly, look at the future direction of the service. Before we go into detail of the impact of COVID on expenditure, just to recap, in previous years we've looked at the impact of austerity on frontline services. The impact on neighbourhood services has been huge. APSE estimated that we need a further £3.2 billion per annum just to take us back to the minimum sustainable level which we passed in 2015-16. Therefore, the pandemic arrived at a time when resources are significantly reduced already due to the austerity measures. The figures we'll be looking at in the following slides are averages for the service from participating authorities. And as I said, they relate to April to June 2020. For each service listed, they've faced additional spend as a result of COVID-19 related protective equipment, signage, materials such as PPE, contract cleaning costs and so on. Just bear in mind that this won't cover everything that's come out of central budgets. For building maintenance, this is in excess of £40,000 for the first quarter alone. In addition to this, services have obviously faced their own additional costs. The cost of the additional specification for building cleaning being in excess of £40,000, the cost of additional agency and overtime to cover for refuse collection being in excess of £37,000, and the transport section needed to hire in, on average, an additional 8.5 vehicles. Next, if we look at income lost against anticipated budget for the first quarter is on average over £1.5 million for leisure, nearly £120,000 for parks, and nearly £100,000 for refuse collection. As well, the anticipated loss of income for building maintenance is 44%, and over 60% of income compared to the budget estimate will be lost from private MOTs and taxi testing. You can see the income from activities which has been affected by the closure of leisure centres, the highest losses being for gym membership and club and block bookings. For refuse, if we look at the trends pre-COVID, including the latest data set for 2019-20, you can see a steady increase up to March 2020 on discountable income, which includes income from things like trade waste collections, green waste collections and bulkies. This may well change for the coming year, bearing in mind the reductions in income for the first quarter of 2020. If you look at the number of employees in March compared to May 2020, we saw a decline in numbers for transport and street cleansing and an increase in refuse collection and cemeteries and crematoria. For building cleaning, although operational employee costs deployed increased slightly during this period, there was still a marked fall in hours deployed, primarily due to school closures. The percentage of authorities who furloughed staff is shown, and this applies to about a quarter of authorities for catering. For leisure, on average, 92% of leisure staff were either furloughed or redeployed. Staff absence due to COVID, including isolation, shielding and COVID-related illnesses, range from about 10% for transport to over 25% for street cleansing. The impact of the pandemic on staff may well affect performance on productivity for the 2020-21 data collection this coming year. If we do look at past performance for building cleaning, square metres cleaned per employee has greatly improved over the past 15 years, levelling off for the most recent figures. So how has COVID impacted on service standards? We asked your opinions on the impact at the end of the first quarter. For most of the services above, there was either a significant or a moderate impact. Parks and transport were viewed as being impacted on a significant scale. In roads, the majority of authorities reported a decrease in service or public enquiries. This is likely to reflect the lower public use of the road and highways asset in the first quarter, although the number of road users has come back up since then. In street cleansing, requests for litter picks reduced, which may be due to the lower levels of street litter as a result of lockdown restrictions on people's movements and business operations. On the other hand, dog bin emptying requests increased, and this may be due to dog walking increasing as other forms of exercise were restricted. 75% of authorities saw an increase in fly tipping, with an average increase of 55%. And fly tipping is likely to have been impacted by the widespread closure of civic community sites during the first couple of months of lockdown. The number of free meals and packed lunches provided compared to the same period last year reduced by 88%. 90% of those meals served were for key workers or vulnerable children. Respondents estimated that leisure usage is going to be down by 46% this year, although this was the prediction in August and September when we did the data collection exercise, and that's before further lockdowns have happened later on in the year. In terms of markets, most markets were at least partially reopened by the end of the first quarter, but visitor numbers for indoor markets were down by 70% compared with the same quarter last year. So what's been the effect on work or productivity of these services? On building maintenance, the breakdown of types of jobs completed is shown on the top left of the screen. Reactive jobs are nearly 73% down on the same period in 2019. Planned maintenance jobs are around 34% down, and there was a 5% increase in emergency jobs, which indicates that the emergency service is being maintained. There could be a number of reasons for the increase in emergency jobs, including the reduced reactive maintenance regime and more householders being at home. For roads, the average percentage of capital programme anticipated to be incomplete by the end of the financial year was nearly 25%. However, 94% of safety inspections were carried out. The COVID pandemic had a major impact on those authorities planning further LED upgrades during the first quarter. Of those authorities not already at 100%, over 15% of upgrades were planned, but under 2% were achieved. Even without further restrictions, these authorities now expected to achieve around 73% of this year's LED upgrade programme. On average, nearly 20% of scheduled council vehicle services were postponed in April to June, creating a backlog already. If we look at some of the past trends for some of these services pre-COVID, we can notice how the improvements of recent years may be affected this year by the pandemic. In building maintenance, the average time taken to complete a routine repair had reduced from 21 days in the year 2000 down to 8 days for the latest data collection in 2019-20. However, we could anticipate this increasing again in next year's data collection due to the need for separate visits by tradespeople and social distancing measures. The condition of roads is measured differently in Scotland to how it's measured in England and Wales. So these are shown separately on the slide, but in both cases, the lower the percentage that needs attention, the better. Both have shown an improvement over the last 13 years. Next year's figures may be affected by reduced works on the highway or could be affected by a change of usage on the roads through lockdowns and travel restrictions. The percentage of LEDs had soared in recent years, the latest figures being 71%. However, again, this may be affected in next year's data collection by planned upgrades being delayed. Parks and street cleansing both estimated that an increase in resources, both staff numbers and staff costs, was required in the second quarter to bring the maintenance standards back up to normal levels by the end of the second quarter. This increase required is higher for parks than it is street cleansing though. If we look at quality inspections, the percentage of acceptable sites did fall significantly in the early part of the first quarter in April compared to February 2020, but improved slightly in May and June. This shows the number of burials for the last financial year as purple bars, and for the first quarter of this year comparatively in blue bars. The peak in burials and cremations in April and May this year compared to last year reflects the impact of the Covid pandemic. Overall, there was a 41% increase for the quarter. This shows a comparison for cremations, which saw a 37% increase. Services requiring more human contact and interaction saw significant falls during the same 2-month period. However, by June, trends in both burials and cremations were reversing. Most of the household waste recycling centres were closed during April, but by the end of June, this had reduced to less than 20%. Food waste collections were the least affected by service suspensions, and the average tonnage of food waste recycled increased by 72% in the quarter. At the same time, dry recyclate sent for recycling increased by nearly 15%. These figures reflect increased home consumption, bulk buying, stockpiling, food in particular, and buying online. Residual household waste collected also increased by 24% compared to the previous year. Finally, as expected, fuel consumption decreased for the quarter. 14.5% less fuel was used in the first quarter compared to the same period in 2019. So next, the progress we've made this year. We will continue to provide the excellent range of reports to you, including standards reports, which are your positioning reports, your comparative family group report across the range of measures, the dashboard style report we know as performance at a glance, direction of travel reports, which is your trend analysis on your performance for the past 5 years, summary reports comparing performance across the countries and years, case study reports on the best and most improved performers from the awards, as well as your optional customer satisfaction surveys. You'll continue to get all of these reports this year, but as this has been an exceptional year, we did the following as well. We introduced a new quarterly data collection on the impact of COVID, which we've just been through the results for. We made data collection easier this year and highlighted what data you need to complete to qualify for core PIs and the awards. This meant that you could prioritise your data collection more. We've developed a new street scene data template, which covers both streets cleansing and parks. So if you operate an integrated street scene service and you can't disaggregate some of the elements of the data collection between the specific services, things like costs and staff resources, then you can submit combined data in the street scene data template. We've made huge changes to the way we deliver our data completion training this year in response to the current Covid-19 situation. We've set up remote training capabilities, and we now offer the same great content via an online one-to-one training session. 35 councils are now using the Alarms app to measure the quality of service delivery for ground, streets and cemetery land. This year seeing the introduction of a randomiser, so the app randomly selects sites to be inspected, as well as a mapping and route planning facility for the inspections. The new web portal is now fully up and running with more functionality around downloading your reports. Last year's seminar saw the workshop discussions focus on green indicators around the climate change agenda. These have been successfully introduced for a number of services, including transport on measures around types of vehicles and fuel used. And finally, awards. Many of you will be wondering what's happening with the Best and Most Improved Performer Awards this year. We have been holding off on this as we'd like to do this physically at an event. So this is likely to be after the second batch of reports. This gives those of you who have been unable to make the first batch deadline this year due to the pandemic a chance to enter it. If the restrictions mean that we can't meet physically, then we'll hold this online. This year, for the first time ever, we are holding a dedicated week of data completion training sessions and as an enhancement to this virtual seminar. To enable as many members as possible to attend, we'll be holding 2 sessions every day. Morning sessions will take place between 10 and 12, afternoon sessions between 2 and 4. This is free of charge to Performance Networks members and helps in both understanding the Performance Networks reports, as well as the more technical training on completing the data templates. This is aimed at new staff, or if you feel like you need a refresher on the data collection process, then obviously please feel free to attend as well. You can book onto this via the APSE website. And now for the future developments that you can look forward to. First of all, we've issued a survey to find out whether you'd like to do the impact of COVID data collection exercise for the second quarter. If you'd like to get involved, don't worry if you didn't submit data for the first quarter, you can backdate this. Subject to demand, we'll be running this again. This will give you a picture over time, as well as a comparator with other councils facing similar challenges. We'll need to review data collection required for the coming year, and I'm asking all of the workshops throughout the week to discuss the changes we need to make for the questions for 2020-21, taking into account the impact of COVID. You can use the quarterly data collection exercise as a guide for this. We've launched a brand new app for building cleaning inspections. This follows on from the huge success of the LAMS app. This is currently being piloted by 4 authorities, and it has 4 surveys to assess the quality of cleaning for educational establishments, leisure centres, offices and public conveniences. This will be discussed in the building cleaning workshop this afternoon. We'll be reviewing whether to introduce apps for other services like the inspection of play areas and memorial safety. There is a LAMS working group meeting on the 17th of December to discuss this. Due to the differences in legislation between the countries, we are underway with a small working group to develop specific models for environmental services and trading standards for England and Wales. Therefore, Scottish authorities will have received their templates already, but development work is in hand for England and Wales, and we hope to release these in the new year. We have developed a new licensing data model for England and Wales, and we'll look at demand for this in other countries as well. We'll look at the potential to form partnerships with professional bodies and associations like we have in roads with Scots, CSS Wales and DMG, in environmental health and trading standards, and in markets with NABMA. This will apply where it's beneficial to the members, so if you have any thoughts on this, please feed this back to your workshop facilitator. We are now live with our new database, which has been a tough implementation year, but the reports are more automated, meaning now that you'll get them quicker and you'll receive more analysis in future years. The system will also allow for the option of more online data collection and online reporting of data in the future. So a few final words from me. You're part of something very unique. Performance Networks is the leading performance management tool for local government throughout the UK. It's vitally important that those of you who spend your time number crunching each year continue to do so. Without your participation, we wouldn't have the valuable resource we need. You have the best source of information for local government, which you need now more than ever as you battle for budgets and you need to provide evidence to internal and external stakeholders. In particular, COVID has impacted on council services throughout the UK, and Performance Networks is a vital tool for you to be able to compare your inputs, productivity, outputs and outcomes with similar councils who are facing the same challenges as you are at the moment. Our national influence continues to grow as evidence continues to be in high demand. The data is valued by government and audit bodies alike. We will build on the success of Performance Networks over the coming years, which will involve engaging with you all to ensure it continues to respond to your needs. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you.